Dragon's Dogma 2 is a weird one because I think it's amazing. Everyone I know who's played it thinks it's amazing, and yet you go online and the general consensus seems to be that it's garbage for bootlicking who don't understand that it represents the thin end of the wedge for corporate greed in games publishing. Now, I don't want to get into the microtransactions controversy too much, partly because it's literally yesterday's news, or last week's news, or last fortnight's news, whatever you want. But here's what's interesting to me about all that. There were a few content creators out there who were pretty much making out that the core design of Dragon's Dogma 2 is deliberately set up in a way that will encourage players to buy into these microtransactions that are available. And just to recap, Dragon's Dogma 2, just like the first game, which was so long ago that if this is still the thin end of the wedge, we're doing pretty well actually, has a number of microtransactions which are time savers, similar to what you get in Assassin's Creed nowadays. It was made out by certain people that fast travel was locked behind a paywall on the grounds that fairy stones, which enable instantaneous fast travel, are a really expensive item in the game if you buy them in shops, and yet you can go to the Steam store or whatever and just buy one with real world money, which isn't even the case. You can't buy fairy stones from the store. You can buy a port crystal, which is a related but different thing, but I'm not going to bother explaining it because if you give a shit about the distinction, you probably already know. So the suggestion was essentially that Dragon's Dogma 2 is unnecessarily difficult to get around in order to encourage people to buy into these microtransactions. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up and having to rake over those coals a little bit is that the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, stay with me here, I remember that coming out, right? And I remember one of the chief complaints about RPGs or games in general after the Elder Scrolls became such a mainstream series with that release was that games were too dumbed down, they were too hand-holding. Games didn't let you figure things out anymore. People would hold Oblivion up to Morrowind, its immediate predecessor, and the difference between the way those games handle quest giving, for example, map markers, that sort of thing, fast travel, is really stark. At some point between 2002 and 2006, it was decided that Elder Scrolls players, they can't really be bothered following instructions. What they actually want is a GPS marker. And over time, people got a bit bored of just heading towards a map marker as the eagle flies and started pining for the days where Morrowind would give you a set of directions in the same manner that a guy in the street would. Now, Dragon's Dogma 2 is a modern video game and not one from 22 years ago, so it does give you a quest marker because frankly, that's what people expect these days. But it does hail from Morrowind's school of thought in the sense that it thinks the journey should be bloody arduous. You're always going to have to get halfway and make camp at a campfire, a camp which might well be attacked when you're trying to get some sleep, which will leave you in even worse dire straits or whatever. The whole point of Dragon's Dogma 2, as it was with the original Dragon's Dogma, is being prepped for journeys. Trying to, expect the unexpected, knowing that you have to get right the way across the other side of this continent and trying to manage the fact that you've got a limited amount of weight you can carry and you need a certain amount of lamp oil, you need a certain amount of food. How much of that are we going to be able to get on the way? How many rest stops are there? This is a part of the map that I've literally never explored. Are there towns? Are there stopovers? Is there a fort? Is there even a place we can set up camp? It's like trying to plan a road trip in the 1970s where instead of a GPS you've got an out-of-date A to Z and the vain hope that there's a little chef on the way. Dragon's Dogma 2 is actually less obtuse than the first game, but we won't get into that. It just strikes me as odd and even slightly unfair that Dragon's Dogma 2 comes along after all this time, after all this dumbing down, after all this sort of culture of hand-holding in games where even RPGs are kind of terrified of having the player figure things out for themselves. Here's Capcom coming along and saying, this is Dragon's Dogma 2, it's uncompromising, take it or leave it. And then the business guy's going, well, you can make it a bit easier if you punt us a bit more cash. I feel like it's a modern game with a lot of modern sensibilities, designed for a modern era, but it has that 2002 spirit where actually, we're not going to explain everything. Actually, we are going to assume that you're not a complete idiot. Alex, my colleague, did a preview a few weeks back of Dragon's Dogma 2 where he said in the title, after just 3 hours, I'm convinced Dragon's Dogma 2 is not just a Game of the Year contender, but possibly an all-timer. And a lot of people on Reddit, on Twitter, in our comments as well, kicked off about that, because apparently a lot of people don't know how previews work, and they think that Alex was making this bold declaration on the basis of, you know, spending 3 hours in the character creator. They don't start you right at the start of a game like this, at a preview. It was like a vertical slice he was playing. I'm not going to get into that. The upshot is, Alex was right. I totally agree with him. I think it is, as things stand, probably Game of the Year. And I can't really think of anything that's going to knock it off that perch for me. At the end of all that, Dragon's Dogma 2 is a special game because it just lets the player crack on. And it doesn't really care whether you succeed or not. It gives you a harsh world and things to get done within that world. And it gives you the tools to get those things done and the means to get those things done. But then it just lets you go. And it's also really rare that a game properly embraces the fact that it's set in the wilderness, where dark is properly dark, where mountains are proper mountains. Not just sort of textured kind of knobbly triangles that you can get to the top of just by spamming the jump button. Like proper mountains that are the size of mountains. Like, you know, I've been hill walking in Scotland, and you kind of stand on the edge of a hill and you look around and you imagine the camera panning around you to reveal, like, I don't know, the Grampians behind you or something. And it's just like the scale of nature is incredible and kind of inimitable. You can't copy it. And yet Dragon's Dogma 2 has a bloody good go of copying it. These are the best Scottish mountains since that game that came out a couple of months back that was literally about Scottish mountains, and those Scottish mountains were great. Dragon's Dogma 2 isn't set in Scotland, it just reminds me of home, right? On the basis that it's full of mountains and sheep, and it's got an oppressive social contract, and the food's usually disgusting. God, I f***ing miss it. And I miss the feeling I had when I first played Morrowind. A feeling that I was actually inhabiting a world that existed beyond me, in some sense. And then I remember not feeling like that about a video game for a long time until The Witcher 3 came along. A game that was vast and intricate and absolutely stuffed to the gills with meaningful interactions with people who felt real. All of these games are totally different, and they get there via totally different means. But Dragon's Dogma 2 is the first time I've felt like that in a long time. I thought I was way too old to get so invested in a game that I felt like it was a sort of secret garden, like a portal to an alternate universe where everything was a bit exciting, as opposed to just a video game that I was playing through a screen. The other great thing about Dragon's Dogma 2 that makes it so now is the fact that it's really, really easy to play in short bursts. And I don't think this is celebrated enough. It's a very meaty game. There's lots of stuff in there, and every quest has these sort of 4 phases. The initial phase where you're prepping to go out into the field, and it's like, I think I might be fighting a griffin here, so what do I want for that? Getting there is phase 2, and then you get to where the quest happens and you do the quest, assuming you haven't already been pulverized by the environment by that point. And the final phase of a quest, and often like one of the longest, is just getting home and turning the quest in. It's not like a lot of other RPGs where once you complete the objective, you just sort of magically get some money. You have to actually go back and turn it in and tell the person that you've done the thing. But each phase of a quest is kind of its own sort of sesh. Again, it's not broken up in a prescribed way. The game doesn't say, this is phase 1, this is phase 2. You're just left to go about it at your own pace, but that lends itself to a lifestyle where you don't necessarily have hours and hours and hours to plow into it in one go. Like, for example, if you're a functional member of society with a job and responsibilities. It's just a perfect game for now. And for that reason, I think Alex was right. I think it will be Game of the Year. And I think it's beautiful, and I think it's unlike anything else out there, apart from the very game that it's a sequel to. And it's an all-timer, whether it's Game of the Year or not. Now, the scenario where this isn't Game of the Year, therefore, is possibly even more exciting. Because what could possibly be Game of the Year if not Dragon's Dogma 2? Very much looking forward to finding out. Is it going to be Star Wars Outlaws? It's not going to be Star Wars Outlaws. I mean, I'm sure that's going to be fine, but it's... Come on. And if you've written it off on the basis of some YouTuber or other giving it, darling, how can you countenance playing a game where fast travel is locked behind a paywall? I would urge you to just no listen to folk who've told you that, because it's not true.